Chairperson Budge, would you like to open the meeting?
Sure. We'll call this meeting of the April 27th South Sacramento Conservation Agency Joint Powers Authority to order and ask the clerk to call the roll.
Good morning, members. Member Campion? Member Campion? Member Budge?
Here.
Member Gatewood? Member Frost? Member Frost? We've unmuted the microphone, so we should be able to hear.
I accidentally turned up.
Member Frost? Member Kennedy?
Here.
Member Natoli? Member Natoli?
Oh dear.
Member Natoli?
We need one howdy, don't we?
Here. I'm here.
Yes. Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you so much. And you do
star 6 doesn't work.
You do have a quorum.
Great.
Yay.
That's nice. Okay. So before we lose anybody, let's go on to item 1, the certificate acceptance on the grant deed for the Ogden Ranch. I suspect it would help if everybody has read the agenda, if whoever was going to make a presentation sort of abbreviates and ask if there's questions.
Yes, this is Kim Hudson. So I was going to go over this, and I'm going to probably do things kind of abbreviated, as you've suggested, so that we can move through before we lose other people. Kind of off to a rough start here this morning. This one's pretty straightforward, but it does represent a little bit of a milestone for the HCP, because this is going to be the first property that the agency is going to hold in fee title. This property was dedicated as part of a development project back before the plan was adopted, and so we entered into a mitigation fee escrow agreement with the developer to dedicate this 32, almost 33 acres of land as a future HCP preserve. And so the county took that land with the intention of then turning it over to the agency, which is where we are at now. That 32.84 acres is basically a nice, I'd call it a vernal pool landscape. So it's some valley grasslands with vernal pools interspersed with some very nice connectivity. So this is simply the transfer of the agreement from the county, of the land from the county to the agency. And with that, I'll just ask if there are any questions.
Any questions from the members? Any comments from the public?
Linda, this is Don Natoli. I just had a question.
Sure.
Yes. So, Kim, when we take it, this will be the first piece we take in fee title. Then, is there what are the procedures then for determining the ongoing, maintenance of the property? And I don't know how it's fenced. Obviously, it's adjacent to a development that's going to go forward. It was approved by the Board of Supervisors. So, as it relates to fencing, to encroachment, to protection of the ground, do you oversee all that, or is there a third-party manager? How does that work?
Well, in this case, it's interesting because Southgate Parks and Rec is involved in this property as well, so they're probably going to be assisting with that effort. It's in their district, but it's an HCP preserve, and they're going to have an easement over part of the land, so they will definitely be assisting in that effort. When this land was dedicated, the mitigation fees were paid for the management and ongoing monitoring. So there is funding available to do what we need to do to manage this land moving forward.
Okay, so is there a biannual tracking of that to make sure that, again, obviously Southgate's involved. They'll they have crews that are out there frequently and so forth. But I guess I'm curious because some of the lands that have either been in Southgate's ownership or with the power line easements that are to the west there, they get to be attractive places for folks with, motorcycles and four wheels and so forth. And when they're adjacent to developed, people are looking for, open fields, and if they can find a place, sometimes that's where they end up. And so, or dumping of tires. And so who does the routine maintenance? Will that be Southgate? Will it be us? Or us through a contractor?
Well, it will really fall on the agency to take care of that, and probably involve, another third party to assist with any of those issues that arise. But there will be, the ongoing monitoring and reporting and oversight of the property.
Okay. So we'll employ a third party, we, the agency?
That's what I would expect, yes.
Okay, and will we post the site with, is there a signage that has been adopted that tells people that this is a protected area, and then those signs obviously have to be, from time to time, I'm sure they're going to, like we find other areas that are accessible to the public. I guess I'm just curious. This is the first one, but I mean, the logistics is great that they paid the fee and we have the land. But, I think the ongoing maintenance, not just the monitoring, but the maintenance and making sure that folks are aware and posting around the perimeter so that people know that it's a sensitive site, and hopefully most people will treat it as such. I guess that's what I'm curious about. So maybe you know what the answer is today since we're on a phone meeting, but I guess for a future discussion, kind of know how we, plan to proceed. You don't have to have all the answers today, but as we bring lands into our inventory, then I think it's going to be important that we make sure we have a, beyond any monitoring or fee that's available, that there's ongoing oversight, on a regular basis. Because when you're close to areas that can be encroached on, it can be problematic. So.
Yes, very definitely.
Okay, thanks, Chair. That's all for today. You can report back to us. Thanks.
So, Kim, I have one request.
Sure.
When we have applications, when we have reports like this, the planner in me always wants to really know where these things are, and I finally figured out that this is west of Bradshaw and adjacent to the hilltop where Vineyard started construction all those years ago. It's sort of it's right in there where Laguna Creek crosses under Bradshaw, I think. But it was finding this was complicated by the fact that the assessor's parcel map apparently has that road spelled wrong. It's not, according to Google, it's Bothwell Drive instead of Brothwell.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Yeah, so it just made it more difficult. So
your point is well taken. I can work with our mapping folks to make sure that in the future I provide some really better maps for you.
Sure, I appreciate that. How is Southgate involved?
There's going to be a trail that goes through this property, and they're going to have an easement, and they will be managing and taking care of that trail. That trail is built to the specification. Will be built to the specifications in the HCP.
Well, super. That's really good. Okay.
We did a lot of work. We did a lot of work on that, but it was
sure.
quite a while ago.
Believe me. we have a trail from South Anatolia to Kavala Ranch that had to be approved by the Corps of Engineers, and staff really did have to work on that one pretty hard. So any other questions from members or any comment from the public? Hearing none, we're probably ready for motion.
Move recommendation.
Super.
Second.
Beverly? Thanks, Sue. Okay, we have a motion and a second. You want to call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Member Campion?
Aye.
Member Budge?
Yes.
Member McGarvey?
Aye.
Member Frost?
Aye.
Member Kennedy?
Aye.
Member Natoli?
Aye.
Member Cerna?
Aye.
And
Super.
the motion passes. Unanimous vote.
Wonderful. That's unanimous then. So we'll go on to item 2, which is the,
Item 2.
Go ahead.
Item 2, adopt the attached resolution authorizing the executive director to execute the purchase and sale agreement between the South Sacramento Conservation Agency and Van Vleck Ranch, LLC.
Okay, do you want me to go ahead with a presentation?
Yeah, but hang on just a minute. Apparently Garrett is on the phone also. If somebody can unmute his phone.
I don't see another number on the call that is not already labeled with a name. And I don't see him as an attendee either.
Okay. So Garrett apparently can hear us. So I'm going to suggest, his phone number is 530-908-6109.
I will send him forward him the email to call in to the call-in with the call-in information, but I don't see that number on our list at all.
Okay, super. Garrett, they're going to you'll get an email. Okay, great. Ken, then go ahead with the Van Vleck Ranch.
Okay. Van Vleck Ranch is a really important component to our creation of the integrated reserve system. Uh-oh. Okay. So discussions were started several years ago with Van Vleck Ranch representatives to purchase conservation easements as part of our Get Ahead, Stay Ahead program. So this was, again, one of the pre-HCP negotiations. The Van Vleck Ranch is a total of nearly 4,000 acres. About 1,875 is already subject to conservation easements. Those lands are not part of this purchase agreement. There are approximately 1,260 acres available to the agency for conservation easements. And I think one of the important parts of this purchase and sale agreement is that it is structured in 2 parts. The first part is the purchase of 383 acres of vernal pool habitat. This purchase would occur at one time when the funds become available from the payment of mitigation fees. So as soon as we've collected the funding for that, we would move forward with that purchase. The remaining portion, which is approximately 877 acres, would occur over time. So as funding became available, we would purchase parts of that 877. And it's anticipated that that purchase would be done through grant funding. And so with the existing easements on the ranch and the 1,260 acres that is the subject of this purchase and sale agreement, there could be about a 3,000 acre area under conservation easement at the Van Vleck Ranch. And so I'll just say that the proposed preserve meets the biological goals and measurable objectives in the HCP by linking existing and proposed preserves, maintaining the biological functions of mapped aquatic resources, and preserving natural land covers that provide habitat for a number of species, including the vernal pool fairy shrimp and the vernal pool tadpole shrimp, foraging for Swainson's hawk, and potential foraging and breeding for burrowing owl. So this acquisition, this purchase and sale agreement is a really important part of our Jumpstart program with the HCP. And as I mentioned, these negotiations for this purchase and sale agreement started several years ago, so it's been a while in the making. And with that, I'll just open up for questions.
Okay, questions from the members?
I'm ready to move the item.
I would second
Was that
it, but I have a
Hatchell?
question.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Let's go on with questions.
Yeah, totally second it. But yeah, just my question is that you anticipate moving forward with the remaining portion of easement, as you said in the staff report, by 2022 using grant monies. What sort of grant monies are you talking about, referring to here, Kim?
These are some grant monies that there are some other folks that are looking at pursuing. And gosh, I don't have the details on that. They've sort of so I don't know. There are funds available to do these types of purchases, but I haven't gotten started on that yet.
Okay.
Bill, do you know anything more about the grant funding for this?
So in the event that grant money wasn't available, do you still intend to do the purchase?
Yes, I would think it would be on our list. Yes, absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
the intention is we should be able to get grant money for this, but it's not limited to that in any way. So yeah, I think we're very interested in forming this preserve.
Okay.
But yeah, absolutely.
All right, and the reason I seek clarification because in your staff out, you said expected the funding for the purchase of the remaining acreage would be obtained through grant money, but that's not exclusively, as you pointed out verbally here. So I just wanted to be clear that in the event that grant money wasn't available or was competitive or didn't fall into the time sequence, that we'd still be intending to complete the preserve. Okay, you've answered my question.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so let me follow up that then, Kim. There's a 8.1 under closing in the agreement itself. Calls for the closing and the adoption of the conservation easements or the recordation of the conservation easements to be completed by the 31st of December 2022. And if they're not, then the agreement terminates. So do you anticipate being able to acquire those monies by that date?
Well, that's our goal. And then that clause also, it will terminate unless agreed to by the parties. So
Okay.
if we get to 2022 and, we don't quite have enough to do the remaining, because it could be any scenario. We could be really close,
Sure.
Or, so it does have that clause in there unless otherwise agreed to. So I feel comfortable with that.
Okay. No, that's great. I was scanning quickly and didn't see the provision for extension, so that's fine. So any other questions from the members? Comments from the public? Okay. Hearing none, we must be ready for a motion.
Yeah.
Member
I think
Kennedy
we already
made
have
a
a
motion. Member Kennedy
Oh, that's right,
motioned
we did.
and Member
And
Natoli
Natoli seconded.
And I'd
Okay,
also
call
like
the
to
roll.
add that I see Member Gatewood on the line.
Yep, I found my way in.
All right.
Okay. Member Campion?
Yes.
Member Budge?
Yes.
Gatewood?
Yes.
Frost?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Aye.
Natoli?
Aye.
And Cerna?
Aye.
And the motion passes by unanimous vote.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay.
Item
Item 3.
South Sacramento Habitat Conservation Mitigation Fee Summary and Preserve Status Report.
Okay, so I put together this report for you based on comments that I had at the last meeting that you wanted to kind of have an idea of where we were at with the whole program. And so I put together this report that basically gives you a summary of the accounts. Since I've written this, we've actually have collected some additional mitigation fees, so this is a little bit out of date. What I did here was I provided a table that shows all the impact acreages for the different land covers, the amount of lands that have been dedicated, if any, and then the preservation fees that have been collected and the reestablishment fees that have been collected. I think I do want to point out that I folded these fees together. So the preservation fees include all of the management monitoring, change circumstances, plan administration, and whatnot. So these fees are actually divided into smaller buckets. And the same for the reestablishment fees. So that's, and then I have listed the projects that have paid these mitigation fees or dedicated land to date. Although, as I mentioned, we do have additional funds came in from a project in Galt just the other day, as well as the other reserve property. We also have two pending proposed establishment projects. One is the Rooney 2 property that's within the Mather Core recovery area. They are intending to create about 117 vernal pools, about 10.7 wetted acres. This particular site is directly adjacent to another site that they had already done a reestablishment project on, or an establishment project. And so with the addition of this property to the existing, what we call Rooney 1 preserve, there will be a larger preserve of 249 acres. We're currently going through the core process on that. They just submitted a management plan, and we're moving forward on that one. The next reestablishment project is the Deer Creek. And this project is about a little over 300 acres. And they are also moving through the process of getting together a management plan and moving forward with that. So these reestablishment projects are really, really important to the HCP system and the creation of the preserve system that's anticipated. So there's a couple of different components to this. There's the fees, and then there's the preserve properties. So if anyone has any questions, I will answer them.
Okay, questions from the members? Questions from the public? Kim, thank you for the write-ups explaining the different projects. That's very helpful.
Oh, good. I'll try to update that as we have more meetings.
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Sure.
And it helps everybody to see what the individual goals of how the individual goals of the HCP are being met with these projects. So, going on to item 4, verbal status report. Is there anything else to report on?
I don't have very much to report on. I did want to mention that I am working on the first set of minor revisions to the plan. These are revisions that don't constitute any changes to the permit or anything like that, but they will be brought forward through the TAC and the Implementation Review Committee and the agency board to take a look at once they get completed. So I'm getting very close to having that done. And our next meeting is scheduled for June 22nd. I don't know if we'll be able to meet in person yet or not. That would be nice. And I think
we will.
Just wait and see.
Yeah.
For comments. Any public comment?
Chairperson Budge and members, I'd like to add that we did not receive any public comments at the clerk or the board's office for any of the items on the agenda today.
Okay, thank you very much. I could hear somebody talking in the background, I guess.
Thanks, Linda. Good job.
Okay, so then we'll stand adjourned until the 22nd of June, at which time we may or may not see each other. Thank you all.
We will.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.